All right, everybody, we're live. This is it. This is our it for the developer series, actually. Welcome to the last one before launch. I'm Ed, and this is our featured guest for today. His name is Victor Duarte. Duarte. He is our one of our resident artists. We only have a couple of them here. But before we dive into the interview and get questions from you guys and go through this laundry list of questions that have come through, I'd like to talk a little bit about things going on outside of this interview. We have just a few short days left until the actual launch of the game. So if you guys want to get in on early access, that's available on Steam still right now at its discounted price. Our soundtrack launched recently. That's also available on Steam. And if you just want to check out the game and see what it's all about while we're here talking about this and you dig everything, there is a completely free playable teaser that's up on Steam right now that you guys can check out. Just type in Overload in the search bar and there it is. We also urge you to join us in the Discord. There's links below that you can interact with the community. We have a very tight-knit, wonderful community that comes to us with questions for our developers, concerns about the game, balance issues, all that stuff. That's where we go, and that's how we interact with them. But now, on to the fun and exciting stuff, Victor. Victor is actually the person in this office that sits closest to me, aside from the refrigerator. Ben might be a little bit closer, but Victor's next closest. So he's got the corner spot locked down over there in the art district, and keeping things real. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of it, Victor.
All right.
I've known you for quite a while, but ancillary mostly because we just worked at the same companies. We never worked really hand in hand until this project. So I will say it's been an utter joy.
Yes.
I had a really good time. You've always been there to give us assets when we needed them, especially at short notice. We've gotten renders from you to post up for video clips and stuff like that, so we definitely appreciate it. But to rewind the tape all the way back, how did you actually get started in this industry?
Officially, my first job was at High Voltage.
Okay.
In 2005.
And where are they out of?
They're in Hoffman Estates, in the suburbs of Chicago.
Okay, Hoffman Estates up in Chicago. So are you from Illinois originally then?
Yeah, well, I was born in Guatemala.
Born in Guatemala?
But raised in Chicago.
Raised in Chicago. So you grabbed a job at High Voltage.
Yeah.
And was that like fresh out of school? Was that?
No. So when I graduated school, I sent my demo reel everywhere.
Okay.
I had some trouble finding work. I was working in the art department at a high school.
Okay.
When a friend of mine who was working at High Voltage.
Like as an instructor?
No. Just like framing artwork and
okay.
Making videos and managing their computers and things like that.
Sure.
So a friend of mine who was working at High Voltage at the time said, "Hey, didn't you apply here before?" I said, "Yeah, I did, but they didn't hire me." He's like, "Well, I think they're hiring again. So, you might want to send your demo reel again." So I did. And that was my first actual job. Although the year before, I had some friends who were working at Studio Gigante in Chicago at the time, and they were working on WrestleMania 21. And one of my friends invited a bunch of us to go down to the studio and just be like crowd noise.
Okay, sure.
So
we've all kind of been there,
We've
right?
all done a little bit of that. So that's an uncredited thing, but that was before High Voltage.
Okay, so what are your previous titles like then? Because you started at High Voltage.
Right.
And
so High Voltage, I worked on Family Guy.
Okay.
And then I was there less than 6 months before they had a big layoff.
Okay, yeah, that has also happened to us all.
I'm not sure if that one was directly related to the performance of a title or something. It was a long time ago. So we got laid off, and Volition actually sent a message and said, "Hey, if you guys want to come down and check the studio, we'll send the bus." So the very next day, I met Mike.
Oh, wow.
And we came down here.
Let me just adjust. I don't want to interrupt your story too much,
Sure.
but I'm going to adjust this mic. We're getting a little bit too low, and I can't actually bump the mic up anymore, so we'll just move it closer to us.
And so Family Guy at High Voltage.
Okay.
At Volition, I worked on Saints Row 2, 3, and 4.
So Saints Row 2 is your first title at Volition then?
Yeah.
That was my first title also.
Yeah. Saints Row 2, Saints Row 2 DLC, Saints Row 3, Saints Row 3 DLC. I was on Insane for a week.
Okay.
Before that was canceled. Big disappointment. I was on CTG, the core technology group, working on the world building tools.
That's the engine itself over there?
For over a year, maybe a year and a half.
Okay.
and then Agents of Mayhem
AOM,
before I came here.
and then here.
Yep.
Wow. And how long has this whole journey been? How long have you been in the industry?
Since 2005, so 13 years.
13 years. Wow. That's an incredible journey. And I assume then that means that you actually went to school for something in the game industry itself, art itself. What did you go to school for?
So when I was in high school, I did a lot of drawing and painting.
Okay.
And ceramics and things like that. But
You did ceramics?
Yeah.
Oh man, I love ceramics.
Well,
I know you've done some other stuff that I love too, but we're gonna get to that way later. Okay, all right.
When I was getting close to graduation, I was concerned about what I was going to do. Didn't want to be a starving artist. And surprisingly, I saw one of these commercials, where it's like, hey, go to school and make video games. So I did.
You jumped on. You're like, all right, that seems like a reasonable choice. At any point, did you think to yourself, man, art is not like that's not a real job, or was it always, I love art, I'm going to do art?
Oh, that was always the goal.
That was always the goal.
Yeah.
That was a single-minded goal.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Well, do you actually play games outside of work?
I do.
You do. Do you have a favorite? Reach way back for me. Do you have a favorite game, or at least a couple of them?
Yeah. Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Symphony of the Night for Game Boy.
No, PlayStation 1.
Okay. All right.
I think. Yeah.
It's hard for me to keep track of them because there's a lot of them.
Right.
And the only one I remember playing, I think, was Simon's Quest, which was for like an original Nintendo.
Yeah, that's the second one, I think.
Okay, so Castlevania, Symphony of the Night. Any other top?
Final
choices?
Fantasy VII, of course.
Final Fantasy VII. Yeah, that's big.
I love racing games. So back in the day, Rage Racer.
Rage Racer. I don't think I remember Rage Racer.
It's great.
What was that? Did that have combat in the racing or no? No, just straight up racing.
Yep.
Okay. What about a game that maybe was something that struck you visually? Like as an actual artist, you look at the game and you're like, wow, those are really impressive assets, or wow, that's visually very impressive.
Most recently would probably be Uncharted 4.
Uncharted 4. Oh, that is a very pretty game.
When that one came out, it was right around the time I was going to start working here, or maybe I had already started here. But I spent an entire Saturday just staring at the textures in that game.
Have you gotten to check out Far Cry 5 at all?
No.
I gotta say, like, I haven't been in the game very much, but I just like the whole region, the area that was set in. So I think that's a very pretty game as far as the art assets go. But
I'm also drooling over the new God of War, which I.
Oh yeah. Have you picked that up yet?
Yeah.
Oh, I have not picked it up yet. I got caught in the stupid Escape from Tarkov. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. That's another frustration like PUBG. What about right now? You said you've picked up God of War. Are you playing that right now then? What were you playing before that? Anything?
Mario Odyssey.
Mario Odyssey. That game is
still collecting.
Game of the year, man. I kid you not. Do you remember what the first game you ever played was?
Not the first one, but it was probably something on the Atari 2600.
Atari 2600. That reaches quite. That dates you.
That
means that
I'm old.
Atari 26. Do you remember any games that you had for that? Did you actually own an Atari?
No. So my first console was the Sega Master System.
Oh, that's a heck of a first console.
So I had friends who had the NES, and I loved it. I'd go over to their house and play. But there's something about the way the Master System looked that I just wanted that one. And I kept begging my parents for it, and I never got it. And then this one Christmas, the same Christmas that the Genesis came out,
okay,
my parents got me the Master System.
Ooh.
So you can imagine what that felt like. I was like, oh, no.
I remember that was when the first game system that I ever played was the Nintendo. And it's like the same exact story. We begged our parents to get a Nintendo, and they were like, no, we're not getting you that. That's a time waster. You're never gonna. And we opened it up. We were at a friend's place. Like we had split Christmas at a friend's place, and we opened it up, and they had two kids that were our family's age, so it was 5 kids all together. And we opened that up, and we didn't stop playing it for since we opened it. It was like Mario 24/7. It came with Duck Hunt. And I think it came with like a track and field game at the same time, but we didn't get into that until much later. It was just playing Mario for forever and forever. But
so not only was I disappointed to get the Master System when the Genesis was already available, it was like the 3D version that came with the 3D glasses.
Okay.
And it didn't have a cartridge, so I thought the game was missing, and I didn't realize until the next morning that the game was built into the console.
Oh man.
So like that Christmas Eve night, I could have been playing all night.
You could, and you did kicking
it.
yourself the next day, whether you did. Well, I mean, share with us then, a nostalgia. I assume that video games during your life growing up were like at least a pretty big part. So share a nostalgic moment. Do you have any siblings? Did you play with them? Did you?
I do have siblings. I don't.
Did they ever get into it with you?
No, we never really. Not until I was started playing Madden with my younger sister for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, but before then, not really.
Were you guys competitive at it, or was it always really friendly? I was gonna say, cause that hit big in college with me, and everybody in college was super competitive with Madden.
It's weird. Of all things to play with my younger sister, it was Madden.
It was Madden.
I don't know why.
That's pretty good. I remember my strategy was always go for 2, and until people figured it out, it was a pretty good strategy. But the minute they figured it out, that was the worst strategy that I've ever come up with. How about now switching back to things that are more related to your career? What about an artist? Do you have a specific artist that inspired you? Someone that you really enjoy? Something that struck with you? And it doesn't matter the medium.
Oh yeah, Salvador Dali.
Really big Dali fan. Yeah.
Back in the day, when I spent more time painting than working on the computer, I used to do all kinds of weird things, surreal things, because Dali's...
super into... He did the Melting Clocks, right? Yeah, that's a really famous piece he did. So you said you painted. What type of painting did you do? Did you do all types? Watercolor, oil?
No, I was never good at watercolor. Started with acrylic, eventually moved up to oils. Only reason I stopped was because I needed to learn software.
Okay, all right. Oh, Yoshi's got a question for us, but it's a little bit late, so we'll come back to his. Because it has to do with the robots, but we'll get into that when we get into the game stuff. I want to talk more about you because I think that's something that we rarely get to hear about here in the office. How did you end up from moving to art into the video game industry? How did you end up focusing on material art and 3D art? Because I think that's what you mostly deal with, right?
Right now, yeah, that's what I do.
So how did you end up getting into that from being, say, a painter or a sculptor or?
Actually, that took a really long time.
Okay, I believe you. 20-some years, right?
So on Family Guy, I was building environments and props and things, and that game looks like the cartoon, so it's cel shaded and flat colors. So there was no real materials or textures or things then. When I worked at Volition, most of the time there I was building cities, laying out road networks, doing big things.
So you've actually done quite a bit of different types of art within it. Okay.
Which is one of the reasons why I was so eager to come work on Overload, because I could actually be an asset guy and make
instead of just a city builder and building.
Right. There's so many things involved in city building, and none of them involve making textures, at least not my role.
Sure.
So it was nice to step away from that for a while.
Okay. All right. So you moved from Volition. Did you do city building the whole time that you were at Volition?
Yep.
And
tools.
Right, on CTG. Right. So then you shifted over. Do you work with any other mediums than digital art now?
I still draw. I've been wanting to get back to it, but I need to clear out my house. There's no spot for it, and I don't want to have to set it up and take it down over and over again. So I need to clear out all the clutter from my house and then get back to painting. Mostly right now, I just do a lot of film photography.
That was this is where
it was a leading question.
It was a leading question because I was a super nerdy film nerd growing up also, so I had all kinds of questions for you about that. But I'll try and keep it brief because maybe the rest of the
we can talk for hours about that.
Probably talk for hours. I want to know. This is my own personal question that I added to the list. I want to know what your favorite camera to shoot with is.
So I have a lot of cameras.
I've seen some of your collection.
Okay, I actually have more here than I usually do.
Okay, all right. Because you do go out during the day and just shoot on your lunch hour and stuff like that.
I'll shoot in the morning sometimes on the way. I'm usually the last one in the office.
That's right. No one's pointing fingers.
Right, so sometimes I'll walk around in the morning and take some pictures before coming in during lunchtime sometimes or after work. So my favorite one would probably be the Yashica Mat 124.
Yashica Mat 124.
It's a 6x6
it's a medium format camera, right? Yeah. Okay. Yep. Geezer's asking what engine we use. This is built in Unity. Revival got that for us already. Have you gotten a chance to use any of the really like a Leica before?
No.
I've only ever heard of them. I've never gotten a chance myself. What about
if I sold all my cameras, I could probably
afford one. One. What about large format? Have you ever done any large format
No.
shooting? Yeah,
Again, that's that's going to take some preparation.
yeah. No. Do you have a dark room at your house or anything like that?
No, that's also why I need to get rid of stuff so that I can dedicate one bedroom just for that
You would build it yourself
instead of that bedroom being a closet right now.
Would you actually consider doing developing color film at your place, or?
I do develop.
Oh, you do.
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I develop. I just don't print.
Okay, yeah, that's another 40 chemicals or whatever that it has to go. It's not that many, but it's quite a few for color. Okay, let's get back to the game itself. Let's talk a little bit about your role here at the studio and working on Overload itself. The question came through, which was, what was your favorite level to design? And that is, it's a misleading question because you didn't actually design any of the levels. We had this discussion before, so maybe we should just outline for everyone in the community what exactly Materials Artist and 3D Artist does. What do you build in our game?
Okay. So I build texture sets, texture libraries that Luke can use to texture the environments that he builds.
Okay.
I build the weapons, the robots, the reactors.
When you say you build the
Doors.
weapons, you mean you make the whole asset, you decide what colors are going to be on the outside?
Not really. So Chris will usually make a concept for it.
Okay.
And then as part of his concept work, he'll make a rough model, which is
Okay.
great because then I know the size and proportions of things.
Sure, and then you don't have to
And then I just jump in and make it.
make it really pretty and fill in those barrels when they're one-sided, right?
Yeah.
DT is asking, do you find any particular project very difficult? If so, what's yours, and what are you most proud of? I think he's asking, or they are asking, in relation to art, probably? Particular project very difficult? Maybe related to the game?
Like one of the projects I've worked on?
Sure. Let's answer that one.
Well, the most difficult project to work on was Saints Row 4.
Why was that difficult?
So, when you're building an open world game, right, you have to manage, well, with any game really, you have to manage the memory.
Okay.
But with open world games, it's a much more complicated issue. So when we finished Saints Row 3, we maxed out the memory for the city.
I do remember that,
Right,
yeah.
we pumped in as many props and materials as we could. And when we went to make SR4, I was the world lead
Okay.
because Schmidt had left. Shout out John Schmidt. So I had to find room for all the new things that had to go in to make Saints Row 4 or the city feel different from Saints Row 3, and that was tough.
It was a big challenge. What about, what are you most proud of? That's a really good question.
Of
Of just all of your work.
all the games.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I suppose you could include art assets outside of that too, but let's say in the games. Did you make a really awesome building, a really awesome robot? Is there something that got used a bunch, something that got featured? Something you're like, Mom, look what I made.
Probably one I'm most proud of is actually the Easter egg that we got in Saints Row 4, because we were trying to get that
Saints
one
Row
in.
4.
Since Saints, it's underneath Let's Pretend, and it has a bunch of pictures of the
I
devs
remember that. It was
with-
all the
with the
artists have their
rainbows.
own room,
Yeah.
right?
So we tried to get that in for Saints Row 3, but we ran out of time and memory. I tried to get it in during Saints Row 3 DLC, but that didn't work.
Okay.
And then at the very last minute, the very last day, Nate Turner helped us get it in
I remember
for Saints
seeing
Row
it.
4.
I remember seeing
And
it.
it was a very proud moment to get that in.
That was a good Easter egg. I hope
Initially, I think there was only 5 pictures, but since it took like 4 years to get it in, we kept adding more people that helped us.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in
There's
that
a lot
room
of people
now.
there.
This is a good question. It comes from several people, but Shroud Eye's got it up there right now. I think Shroud Eye has it up there. Anyway, what robot did you like building the most?
Probably, is it Boss 2? Is that the
Boss
one
2
with the wheel?
With the wheel,
Yeah.
that is,
I like
Boss
that
2.
one.
We don't want to give too much away, but Boss 2 is good. You guys will encounter Boss 2. He's pretty good. Geezer's asking, have you worked on any other Descent titles? I think I know the answer to that. Nope, this is his first one, especially since this isn't Descent. This is a much different game.
True.
Completely unrelated in all ways, shapes, and forms. So let's talk about the tools that you use. What tools do you use in your daily work? Biggest answer ever. I mean, yeah, well, here we are.
Tools, Photoshop, 3D Studio Max, Substance Designer.
What is that for?
That's where I texture. That's where I make
Okay.
the textures.
Okay.
Things like that. Those are the primary tools I use.
Just those three?
And Unity.
Unity to integrate them? All right. Do you have your own? This is a random question. Wasn't on the list. Do you have your own paintbrush portfolio that you cherish and keep? I know that a lot of people that have Photoshop do. Or do you just whatever, man?
I do have some.
Oh, you do have some.
Yeah.
All right. Related to that, what software do you use most often?
Photoshop.
And what's the reason for that? Why is it Photoshop?
Well, so like 3D Studio Max I use all the time too, but that one is purely for making 3D assets.
Okay.
Right. But Photoshop I use all the time. Some of my textures have to go through Photoshop so I can clean them up, so I can say this is a headlight, this is a different light. Whenever Chris makes concepts, I'll copy them from OneNote, put them in Photoshop, adjust the curves and things so that I could see his line drawings better,
Sure.
things like that. Now doing renderings and screenshots, always using Photoshop for cropping and adjusting curves and saturation and things like that. Photoshop is always open.
So that's the number one tool.
Yep.
Well, you had talked previously about, that you were the latest one to come into the office, and sometimes you walk around beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
So walk us through a day in the life of Victor. What's it like to be an artist here at the studio?
Well, I'm not a morning person.
Okay, you and me both. Definitely you and me both.
So depending on what I'm doing, sometimes I'll get up and work from home, like even before I brush my teeth.
Sure.
I'll just get up and start working on something.
That was me this morning.
You know, sometimes if I'm baking textures or fixing normal maps or whatever, I'll like get it going, go to the bathroom, come back and check on it, make a change, go take a shower, come back, just like in and out throughout the morning. By the time I get here, I'll look at my notes because I always write my notes in cursive. It feels like good exercise for my hands. And
that's good exercise for everything.
I never have another reason to write in cursive.
Cryptic for some people because I think there are people out there that
hard
can't
to
read cursive anymore. It's weird that that's a dying art. Okay, so maybe work a little bit from home.
Right. Get ready, come to work, see where I left off.
And just pick up there?
Just pick up there. I like to take long lunches because I like to socialize during the daytime.
Sure.
I like to break it up a little bit. Come back, work in the afternoon, keep doing what I'm doing, leave around 5:30, 6, have dinner, take photos, work for more hours.
Yeah? Do you work from home at night then
Yep.
too? Oh boy.
Yeah. So my day is like split up in like 3 or 4 different parts.
Little chunks.
Because sitting in front of the computer for 8 hours is too much for me.
Sure. I mean, I can't agree more. Being a morning person,
Yeah.
I envy all those morning people out there. It's just not us, man.
Yeah, it's usually around 11:30 or midnight when I decide I want to start developing film, but then I need to wash my dishes and clear out the sink and get ready.
So, I assume before you came to work here, you had seen or heard or played Descent at some point?
Oh yeah, I'd played it before, but
Sure.
I'm not like everyone else.
Is there anything that you thought that you were worried maybe about integrating to the game that you knew that you had to do for fan service?
For this game?
For this game? No. Forget that. We got all new stuff, man.
Well,
right?
I mean, I'm not in touch with the community as much as someone like you and Luke and everybody else.
No, man. I'm out of touch. I barely know these guys. I've never even met them before.
And I never played Descent 2 or 3, so...
You know what? I don't think I have either. Okay. We were discussing this the other day. I think that I only ever played Descent 1 because people in the community had posted screenshots and stuff like that, and I'm like, I don't recognize any of that. I think I would recognize it if I had ever played it.
Yeah. But like if fans wanted something and it went to Luke and Luke's like, yeah, make it. All right, I'll make it.
Okay, so through the trickle down effect,
Trickle-down
maybe you did get that stuff in, and it was really important. All right, what about reoccurring challenges in the development process? Is there something that you just kept running into? I know that in the Saints Row series, we always had memory problems.
Yeah.
And it was always trying to get in under that budget. What about here? Is there anything here?
The biggest problem I've had here is dealing with the way normal maps are rendered on robots, on every asset, basically. That's not a flat tiling texture, because Unity displays normal maps differently than Substance displays normal maps. And then we were going to use Marmoset for rendering, and the normal maps look different there too.
Sure.
So there's been a lot of back and forth and tweaking of assets to make them look good.
What is the actual problem that you would see if you bring a normal map across and it doesn't agree? Like how would you know if you brought one from
if
one
it's
program
supposed to
into
be
Unity?
if it's supposed to be like a flat side of something,
Sure.
it would have like a curve.
Okay.
And you can see when the light goes across it, it just looks wobbly.
And Unity has that fun tool where you can display the normal maps in very fun colors.
All the time. Yeah.
We use that to hunt down those crazy black triangles in all those levels.
Yeah, even in that mode, sometimes the color variation is so subtle I can't notice that there's a problem.
Sure.
So I'll have to like put some lights around it and just kind of look at it and be like, all right, there's a problem.
Okay, all right.
Although now, by this point, I can usually look at the 3D model and say, okay, I know how to fix that.
Well, speaking of 3D models, the Argonian guy from the forums asked you specifically what program you use to make all the 3D models.
3D Studio Max.
And we talked briefly about that.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a particular reason you picked that one above any other ones?
Well, it wasn't my choice. You guys were already, or Chris was already using it.
So that was an easy decision.
Yeah.
That's what we have.
Yeah.
That's what you get to use,
Yeah.
right? Did you know? I assumed you knew how to use that a ton coming.
Oh,
into
yeah,
this,
yeah. So, like, 3D Studio Max was the first program I learned how to model in.
Okay.
Back in 2001, maybe. And then we immediately switched over to Maya. And then I used Maya for, like, 6 or 7 years. Then I used Lightwave for a bunch of years. Volition uses 3D Studio. That's why I've been using that for so long.
Okay. All right, that's pretty good. So you have a pretty broad portfolio of 3D programs.
Oh,
then,
sure.
Yeah? Oh, sure. Easy. That's easy.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're trying to get into the industry, just learn them all. You know, that's good advice.
They're not that different.
Okay, well that's fair. That is fair. It's basically one tool set, and they just decide to implement it.
Right. What's it called, and what's the button for it?
Yeah, exactly. What is it called in this one, and where can I find it? Are the textures in-game physically based rendered textures, or does Overload utilize physically based textures at all?
Yes.
I don't know what any of that means, so maybe you could help the layman's here.
So back in the day, a lot of textures were either hand painted or photo sourced. You know, you would just get like a photo of wood, and clean it up a little bit, and that's the actual texture you would use. But we don't really do that anymore. So now we actually build the textures in. I use Substance Designer.
Okay.
And that means that they react to lighting in a much more realistic way.
Okay, so if you wanted like a rough sandpaper texture to appear on somebody's shoes, like it had been kicked or whatever, you actually build that all in that yourself.
Yep.
And you light it, and you're like, oh yeah, that looks good or whatever, and that ship it on to Luke basically to implement in the level and decide how to put the lights on there. Okay.
Yeah, so Substance Designer is for physically based rendering textures, and Unity supports it.
Sure.
So
okay.
yes.
So that was an easy one. All right. Well, that was an easy question. But what program? And you already answered this. What program do you use to make the textures, especially if they're PBRs? And this was from the Argonian guy again. It's Substance Designer, right?
Yep.
We talked about that one. We got already all the way through that. All right. And there's some of these I think are probably going to get sloughed off onto other people. But regarding the art direction, what would you say had inspired you the most, other than the Descent series, while creating environments, auto ops, items, etc.? So you didn't create all those, did you?
All of the inspiration for me came from Chris's drawings.
Yep, other people.
Because he concepted almost everything I made. But the actual materials, we spent a lot of time, he and I, gathering photo reference, putting them in OneNote, and then we would just have conversations about them, like, what do you want it to look like? Is this a good metal? Is this too rusty?
Would you guys, so when would Chris come to you with a like a preview, I guess, whatever, the word escapes me. Boy, I'm doing really well here. And say, hey, this is what I want, and then you flesh it out. That's basically how it works. Did you ever have to make something without any guidelines at all, like any of the weapons or stuff like that?
No, nothing that major.
Nothing that major, just little stuff.
Yeah, so like usually for a texture set for like a new environment set or something.
Okay, so they'd be like, we're going to make some caves.
He would make like 5 or 6 little drawings of what it should look like, patterns, especially patterns.
Sure.
And then I would make like 20 or 30 of them.
And then you guys all just get together and pick out the ones you like.
I would see the way Luke used them and be like, oh, I didn't expect him to use it that way. I'm like, that's kind of cool. Let me make an additional one so that this will tile or end in a certain way.
And then you won't be able to see the crazy lines in it or any of that stuff like that. That's tessellation's pretty important, right? At least a little bit in that work.
A little bit.
Okay. All right,
but Substance Designer is easy. Like it automatically makes tiling textures.
Oh, it does. So you don't have to worry too much about that tessellation. You're just
you
like, a little bit here.
You can mess it up.
Okay.
But generally it just does it, which is great.
Oh, shout out to Xavier in the chat there. Good to see you, man.
Xavier isn't Xavier?
Yeah, he's right there. He said, "Oh snaps!" That's him, all the way up from Canada.
Oh yeah.
He's one of our friends that moved up to Canada to work up there, so we haven't seen him in a long time, and he's dearly missed. But how much of the environment level designs in the game usually started as concept art, and how does it get translated from that into the actual world? That's from Haunted Parasp on the forum. So what started as concept art? Was it a lot, a little, and then moving over? So that's Chris's department again.
That is Chris's department.
But you might know the answer to this anyway.
Well, it's hard to say because, like, you know, there's a lot of concepts for environments here.
Sure, they can't see them, but they're
Oh,
pinned
yeah,
up on the
sorry
wall
about
over there. It's all right. They're
like-
over there, we promise.
I don't know how much of that Luke used to design the actual levels, but the look of them certainly come from some of those.
Okay, so a fair amount, you would say.
Right.
And what about... has the way that works here been very different from other places that you've
Yes.
worked? Yes. How does it work in other places?
Well, I wasn't an asset guy.
Well, I mean, that's a
before.
good start, but yeah.
Things here are, because we're so small
Sure.
and the game is so, I don't want to say the game is simple because it's not simple, but the way we work is very simple. Everyone has a very specific role. Luke has like 6 roles.
Luke does have 6 roles.
But he doesn't need to be managed.
No,
You know,
that's true.
He knows exactly what work has to get done, and he does it.
That is true. Shroud, I would love to pull that stuff down, but it is not in an easy place to get off of the wall. It's actually pinned up above Chris's desk,
Yeah.
and it's taped in a position where it's probably not going to happen. I'm sorry. I'd love to share it with you. Maybe we'll try and get you guys some concept art at some point in the future, but we can't promise it. We tried to get some on for the stream today, but it was just such a short notice that it just wasn't going to happen, so we can't promise anything. But, all right. Luke is also a troll. Luke is not as big a troll as you might be led to believe, Diva, but I'll leave that up to that. Anyway, can you tell us some general information about Overlord's universe a bit? For example, how would ordinary people live? Would you say that the level environments reflect this aspect at all? This is from Shroud Eye again.
I would say the first part of that question I can't answer.
Just do your best at
That's
it.
not
Take
for
a
me.
stab at it. How would they live? I think it would be in a very creative manner because...
As far as I'm concerned, they just live in cryopods.
That's right. Yes. So you look at the size of the gunship and the
Right.
people. Yep, that all adds up.
But I think
But the second part.
that and maybe the size of the doors is the only thing that would really reflect the size of humans being in that world.
It is a little interesting because if you assume that humans work in any of those environments, a gunship can fly through a light gunship can fly through a doorway. A human must be tiny in comparison to that
Well,
because they have to fit in the gunship, and then you tag them to teleport them. Yeah. Anyway,
It was a very slippery slope, which is why we decided not to make the environments look like people work there specifically.
Yeah, because then you have to worry about the size and scale of every
we have to worry
asset you
about
put
that,
in.
and then we have to worry about what every room is. Like, what are they doing in this room? Now,
And
that's just too much.
It also, if you look at the game now, it looks a lot more like a Descent-ish room. And now I know that they were limited back then in what they could do asset-wise, but if you're going to stay true to the title, you want clean, nice-looking rooms that don't have dirty coffee cups stacked up and plants in the corner. So I agree. I think it was a really good choice to go this way. And when you play the game, it feels fluid and smooth when you are flying through the corridors like it should. I wouldn't want to fly into a room and have potted plants in there that you're
Because then
through.
you always know when you're upside down.
Yep, you do, and now it can be disoriented, which is an actual lovely part of the game to be paying attention. So, getting back to the industry itself, is there a genre or theme that you prefer working on, just overall? Maybe sci-fi, fantasy, anything like that? If you had your pick,
I think everybody would pick sci-fi.
everybody would pick
Everybody.
sci-fi.
As far as making assets go, because you can do so much. I mean, I think our game looks great, and it's fairly simple as far as like other sci-fi games you would see. It's not very greebly, but I'd love to put like all kinds of little detailed pipes and nuts and bolts and cables and wires and all. I'd love to do all that.
All that stuff and stuff that doesn't even exist.
Right.
Like get to make new cool textures that are alien in origin and all that stuff.
Yeah, a lot of H.R. Geiger stuff. That'd be awesome.
Sci-fi. All right. If that was sci-fi was off the table, what would be your number 2 choice?
Probably fantasy, because I don't think I've done anything fantasy yet.
All right. I mean, I'd pick that's the same order of operations that I would pick too. Do you have a favorite project in your portfolio?
Working on? This one.
This one. Okay.
Yes.
What about like your art portfolio itself? You have a
This
favorite?
one.
This one. This one as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. This is an awesome project. All right.
I think Saints Row 3 was great. It was hard, but it was great because we were starting with a new tool set,
Sure.
and we had to build a whole new city, and it was a lot of work, and that was real rewarding, especially since that game was well received.
It was. Yeah,
But,
it did do very well.
But this one's just there's a lot more of me in this game.
A lot more of you, and we could all use more of that. Well, boy, we have a laundry list of questions coming in through all over the place, but let's focus on the important ones here. Chili wants to know, if I can find his question in this list again. Oh, here it is. Did you have any hand in the interface or HUD design?
Nope.
No hand at all.
That's all Luke.
That's all Luke. All right.
That's why I used to say that I was half of the art department, but actually I'm like a third of the art department because Luke did all of the UI. He did a bunch of textures, bunch of decals.
He's a multifaceted man. What about something that an aspiring video game artist should have in their portfolio? What is something that they should all have in their portfolio?
Drawing.
Drawing, like hand drawing?
Yep.
What about digital drawing?
Oh, that's fine.
That's fine too?
Yeah.
Either one?
Anything other than the thing you're trying to do, you know what I mean?
No.
So it's like if you're trying to be a texture artist,
okay,
you're going to have a portfolio full of textures.
Sure.
But you want to have some drawings, maybe either to show diversity, to show that you can do something else, that you're a more well-rounded artist,
okay,
or maybe show the process of how you built the thing that you made.
So do you think it's more valuable to be a well-rounded artist or an extremely talented, focused artist? If you were applying for a job and you're like, hey, I want to be a materials artist, I'm going to be the best materials artist there is, that's what I want to do, is it better to focus all of your energy on just materials, or do you want to have the ability to shift into other roles if the studio needs you to do that? Or
it depends where you want to work and how much experience you have in the industry, because if you've already shipped a game or two,
sure,
people will look at you differently. You've proven you can ship a game.
Okay.
You've proven you can do certain things. So a more well-rounded portfolio might be easier to get through. If you're fresh, if you're trying to get in, you probably want to be very specific. I think that was the problem with me coming out of school. My portfolio was very general.
Okay.
I didn't really have a focus.
But you didn't know at the time necessarily what you wanted to do either.
Right, and I think that's a problem.
Okay. So that's the same problem
Right.
everyone faces, right? Like you come out of school and you're like, okay, now what? Unless you
Right.
went for something very specific, those people all made good
because
choices.
like back then, when I first started working at High Voltage, they were putting out like 3 or 4 games a year.
Sure.
Because they were much smaller, much simpler. But now, some of these games take 3.5 to 5 years, and cost tons and tons of money. Especially if it's a big studio, your role is going to be very specific, right? You're a modeler, you're a texture artist, you're an animator. Don't try to be all 3 of those. Just pick the one and be the best at it.
Be the best at it, and then maybe show that you can draw a little bit too.
Right.
Okay, that's good advice. What about what is the most important thing for actually breaking into the industry itself? I'll give you some examples. Having a portfolio, having robust tools knowledge. Maybe there's something else that you think is more important than those two.
I think you really need to be passionate about this, and not just about not just about playing games.
Okay.
Like you need to read, you need to talk to people, you need to figure out what it is to make games, because
Oh yeah, I do.
making games is not like playing games.
It is not, and I also know that QA is not what I thought it was going to be
Right.
like way back when. We're in a
Right.
way different pool.
Right. So you want to make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into, because there's a lot of late nights, a lot of weekends, and you have to be self-driven. You have to enjoy the work you're doing. Otherwise, you're going to fizzle real quick.
Okay.
If you even manage to get in.
Good advice. And so breaking in, you think that just a general knowledge of what you're getting into is the most important thing.
Right.
All right, that's fair. I mean, I agree with that. What about what fundamental skill do you think is critical to be well practiced for an artist in the industry? Something.
You need to know how to give and take critique.
Give and take critique.
Yes.
Okay.
You need to know how to critique your own work, otherwise you'll never get better. And you can't post your stuff on Facebook and think that because your friends and family like everything you make,
Sure.
that you're good at it.
Okay.
You have to be able to look at your own stuff and know where it's failing and improve on it. And when someone else gives you critique, you can't get offended.
Yep.
You know?
No, I would agree. That's important. If you made something for Luke and he came back to you and was like, "I don't like that," you can't
Right.
take it personally, right?
Exactly. Now, if he said it in a mean way, I might have
Well, right.
something
Yeah.
to say about
Yeah.
it.
Sure.
But no, constructive criticism is always helpful.
Okay. No, I would agree with that. Just across the board in this
Right.
industry, you gotta. It's up there with the important to be very good at communicating.
Absolutely.
Let's get to some of the questions that people have been asking that I've been neglecting terribly. I'm sorry, but we'll get to you. Yoshi's asking, when you're designing the robots, did you have any personalities in mind for any of them? They seem to have them.
Yeah, but that's not a question for me.
That's not a question for you.
I didn't design the robots.
Didn't design the robots. You just
Save that one for Chris.
built Chris. If we ever actually get to Chris, I don't think we will. I think you're the last one before we get to Mike and possibly Matt, if we can get them on for the launch. We're talking about doing a launch stream. If we do, you guys are going to want to tune into that. All right, let's get on to Yoshi's question here. More topical. Victor, did your painting background have any unexpected applications when it came to game art? I imagine it to be very useful when it comes to environmental and texture creation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, like, I wouldn't say that if you wanted to be a texture artist now, that you necessarily need to go to school for it.
Okay.
You know? I mean, I learned substance designer from watching YouTube videos.
I mean, we learned a lot. I have learned many things on YouTube videos.
Right. It wasn't around when I was in school. I had to learn it on my own. But yeah, I learned a lot of things in school about composition and color theory, and that is always useful.
Okay. All right. That's fair. Let's see. What else you got here? I imagine it would be very question. May you recognize in the trailer? Chili asks. That was we got through that one. Have you ever used VR tools to assist in coming up with ideas or assets?
Nope.
No. Okay.
VR tools?
3D art painting in VR, any of that stuff?
I play with that stuff, but I've never used it to make anything for this game.
Just played with it?
Yeah.
How did it work? Was it fun?
Oh, it's awesome.
Is it awesome?
Yeah.
I always thought that would be, like, I can't draw to save my life. Let me just put that out there. But I always thought drawing in 3D would be, like, much
That one
challenging.
is much more difficult because there is no surface. And, I don't like the drawing in 3D so much. I like the sculpting in 3D one better.
Oh, Xavier wants to know how often we're in VR for development.
Me, never.
Never, yeah. Me, less than I should be. That's my answer. I should be testing VR quite a bit more, but we only have a couple of headsets in the office, so it probably gets neglected a little bit more than it should. It is beautiful in VR. I don't have the same problems that other people have where they get motion sick. Ben and James were doing that. I can spend hours in there, and I have a really good time zipping around in there. So I feel really bad for everybody that gets motion sick. But
yeah, as far as like games I'm currently playing, I'm replaying Lone Echo because I love that game.
Oh wow,
that's great.
Sick. Okay, so we've got a couple of extra serious questions for you. Why do you have such a beautiful, dreamy voice? That would be volume from the chat.
I don't know. I might be getting sick.
You might be getting. No, you always have you have a soft, beautiful voice.
Okay.
You got to be proud. It's like Xavier. If you catch him past midnight, you
Xavier,
feel like you're in some sort of telecom commercial or something. I will buy what you are selling. All right. I know I catch you very often out at lunch, doing the lunch thing, and we all enjoy relaxing after work. What is your favorite cocktail? What is your go-to delicious drink after work?
I'm a whiskey drinker.
Whiskey drinker.
Yes.
Whiskey Wednesday?
Whiskey Wednesday.
Whiskey Wednesday. What's do you have a particular favorite brand or type?
I like Japanese whiskeys. The Yamazaki, Nika.
Okay. That's something I've never actually gotten into.
I love cocktails too, but those aren't for every day.
No, you're right. Those are for special occasions.
Those are for Friday nights and Saturdays.
Fridays and Saturdays. I have another beautiful question here. How long did it take you to grow out that glorious mane? And what conditioner do you use? Because you have just a beautiful... You guys can't appreciate this on camera because his hair looks like he keeps pulling it back. That's cheating.
It's kind of hot under these lights.
It is. It's a little
it
warm under these LED lights that put out no heat whatsoever.
It's not that long.
Victor has beautiful hair. It's glorious. Oh, it's not that long. Have you always had long hair?
No, it's actually kind of funny. So when I moved to Champaign to work at Volition, I got a haircut, from somewhere. I don't know, and it was kind of a bad one. And I was just like, oh man. So next time it was time to cut my hair, I went somewhere else. Okay. Again, another bad haircut.
It's bad luck, yeah.
And then next time it was time to cut my hair, I was like, I'm just gonna let it grow and see what happens.
Yeah, you're tired of getting bad haircuts.
Right.
I hear you.
And once you get past the awkward period, because my hair's curly, so it was like, kind of froed out. But once it got long enough and started settling down, I'm like, hey, I kind of like it. And then I used to joke that it was my Saints Row hair, and I was going to cut my hair as soon as I was done working on Saints Row games.
And that never happened.
And that was like 10 years. And now I just kind of, I don't know, kind of like it.
I mean, it's how I've always seen it. It's how I always know you.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, that ends it for our questions for Victor. If you have anything else you got to ask him, get it in now. But I want to talk a little bit about what the rest of our schedule is going to look like and talk about our challenge for the week, which I don't know if you caught it or not, but we sent out through the Discord community a series of screenshots posted at differing times throughout the week. And the community's job was to quickly find those in the early access version of the game and take their own screenshots and post them to us. We did Mario Kart rules, so it was first place was like 9 points, I think, and then it trickled down through that way. And the results are in for that. Shroud Eye wins with 104 total points.
Oh, wow.
6 first places. And some of them were absolutely incredible. I'm not even joking with you guys here. Shroud Eye could peg the screenshot in under a minute. The last screenshot he got, we put it up, his answer, less than a minute. That's crazy to think that he knew exactly what level that was in. We posted a screenshot of a cryopod room. And he got the room and the angle and the level all in under a minute. So props to Shroud Eye, who cleared it with 104 points. Second place was a really close match between Yinit and Lothar, and it came down to the wire there. Yinit wins with 75, and Lothar is third with 72. Big shout out to Yoshimitsu, who put up 62 points himself. Those top 4 places were hotly contended throughout the week. Everybody else that contributed, I'm really glad that you guys even played, because we weren't sure how anyone would react to this. It wasn't a Twitch fest, it wasn't a speed run, it wasn't anything like that. It was something we thought people could relax and kind of enjoy in a slow period, slow pace. Maybe they would mix it up. Nope, turns out Shroud Eye is incredibly good at finding screenshots for levels, so good job on that. Our next challenge is not going to be posted this week. Well, it will, but not today. It's going to be posted on our Saturday stream because we're shifting up our streaming schedule. We're removing the Tuesday streams as we get close to launch. We need to dedicate all of the time we can in the office to fixing this game and making it as good as we can. We're really working hard on multiplayer, and we appreciate all the community feedback that you guys are giving us, but we just don't have time for the Tuesday streams anymore. We're hoping, like I mentioned a couple of times before, to get Mike and Matt on at the launch stream if we decide to do one, and we can talk to them. So we'll hit you guys up in the community in the Discord channel to get questions, and in the forums to get questions for them if we do. If not, our next challenge is going to get posted on Saturday. I can't talk about what it is yet because that would ruin the surprise. But thank you guys for participating in this one. Ben should be setting up the Discord award titles right now. Also, if you guys enjoyed hearing from Victor and want to see some of the stuff that he built, you can pick up the playable teaser, absolutely free on Steam right now. Drive around in those levels, look at those art assets, check out the guns on the ship, all of that cool stuff. If you enjoyed it enough to actually want to buy it, we do have an early access version of the game that's up right now. It offers a handful of levels, a bunch of challenge modes, and it's discounted from the full price that it will be when we launch on the 31st, which is coming up a lot faster than we're all expecting in the office. If you want to ask questions for any of our future casts or just want to interact with us on the next one, Discord link is down below. If you missed any of our previous streams and want to check those out, we have VODs that are posted on all of the media that you guys can get out there on YouTube and on Twitch. And thank you guys so much for joining us. Check us out again on this Saturday, 2 p.m. Central, and we'll see you guys later.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.